it's Fernando doing our video for the Modern Survivalist, and this is going to be a video reply to some of the comments that I got from my previous video, the one on Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, the elections. As expected, it was very heated in terms of the feedback that I got. I think half of them were negative thumbs down votes and such, and it was expected. I knew it would, because it's a very sensitive topic. They say that if you want to have any successful channel or blog or any successful publication, you avoid politics and religion. Those are the two things that people are the less tolerant of. And exactly what happened. I mean, I had some guys that I had to actually raise some comments because they were just insults. One guy that was a long-term subscriber to the channel just said, I am very upset and just insulting and amazed that this is the interesting thing, amazed that you have a different opinion. That's that's the thing that I'm trying to get through here with these videos. And guys, I'm talking about politics in the Modern Survivalist because it is an important part of modern survivalism. This is the kind of thing that has maybe the worst, the most significant consequences to your way of life, to your freedom, to the quality of life that you will have. Politics is extremely linked to that. It's not, I mean, you could have a survival channel and just talk about, guns, knives, flashlights, the kind of thing that I do all the time, and not address every now and then these things that I believe are extremely important. Again, I believe, this is my own opinion, and thank God I'm able to have that. The guy that started insulting me and was so upset after following me for years, you're not capable of being tolerant of someone else's different opinion. And the funny thing is, I'm not even endorsing any candidate. I mean, I said in the previous video, I don't believe in either Trump or Clinton as good candidates. I said, I'm not even voting, I'm not American, so this is just my opinion based on some of the questions that I got asked. Is I would be voting for, if I was American, I would probably be voting for Gary Johnson, given that he's, of the candidates, he seems like the most reasonable one. Some guys actually hate the guy, but from what I've heard, he's the most level-headed and less evil of the, not the less evil. I mean, he's the guy that seems to be more of a reasonable. That's the guy I would at least vote for. In my opinion, that's the guy I would use my vote for. If I didn't believe in any of the possible candidates, I would just a blank vote. Just making a statement of, I don't believe in any of these guys. I don't believe any of these is a good candidate. But since I wasn't endorsing either Trump or Clinton, it's surprising that people still got so upset. But it was to be expected. I still think this is very important. So let's get to the questions. Sorry, I'm still having a little bit of a flu thing. Many people aren't thrilled to vote Donald Trump. However, that's how it happens a lot. Lots of guys that, they don't believe in Donald Trump. They actually think he's not good at all as a president, but they just hate Hillary Clinton a lot, which I can understand as well. Now the difference is, I wouldn't be voting for Trump simply because I very much dislike Hillary Clinton. That's maybe the difference. However, to throw your vote away on another candidate virtually guarantees Hillary Clinton a victory, which will strip rights to include freedom of speech and gun rights. Also Trump, a little bit about that. You're not throwing away your vote. The only moment, this is important, this is part of the education that I expect happens here in this channel. You're not throwing away your vote when you're voting for something that you believe in. That's a lie. That's something that's a created lie that is always propagated by the mainstream media. The idea of you're throwing away your vote because you're not voting for the two guys that they want you to vote. They don't really care who you vote for. They just want to make sure you're voting for one of those two that they're being presented to you. That's what they're really interested in. What the mainstream media really fears, what the establishment really fears, is that you don't vote for either one. They don't give a crap if you vote for Clinton or Hillary or Donald Trump. They simply don't. They're the Republican candidate, they're the Democratic candidate. Either one, they're going to be okay with, all right? That's not going to be changing life for them at all. What they're really afraid of is you voting for something else, or maybe voting for nothing at all, a blank vote, like a protest vote, a vote where you're saying the establishment has completely failed me, I don't believe in any of these candidates that you have, none of them is suitable, I'm a blank vote. That's a vote that matters as well. You're not throwing away your vote when you're making a statement. It has the same power as any other vote. Maybe it has even more, right? Because, I mean, as of right now, and again, going back to the Gary Johnson thing that some people, oh, Gary Johnson is a complete idiot. It's a very safe vote because the guy is not going to be winning. Gary Johnson will not win. At the same time, each and every little vote that you put on the third party is giving power to the third party option. You know, it was actually very interesting to see how Ron Paul back in its day, he was completely avoided. You guys don't seem to understand one thing. When the mainstream media doesn't want you to think about a candidate, they simply do not mention him. That's what they did with Ron Paul. They would mention the first candidate. There's actually a clip in YouTube that is very funny, very interesting, from CNN. They would say, in first place, Obama, second, Romney, and they then mentioned the fourth candidate. They completely avoided mentioning Ron Paul. They were scared about the guy. You know, the guy scared them. The idea that he was getting such traction, that he was getting such, and they just reduced the screen time for him as much as they possibly could. That's what they really do when the mainstream media doesn't want you to think or vote for someone. Okay, guys, it's gonna be a longer video for sure, and I have other stuff coming up. I have actually a nice couple of reviews from a knife and a bag that I got, which, you know, I think those are good things. Those are gonna be good videos, more of the classic stuff, but this is important as well. That's why I'm doing it. And also, as a matter of respect, I mean, each guy that commented in the previous video, I think it's a matter of respect, doing my best to at least cover some of those opinions. Again, so important, the ability to understand and accept others people's opinion, even if you don't agree with them, even if you strongly disagree with them. Some of the folks here are, you know, saying things that I can disagree with more or less. As long as they're being presented in a respectful manner, you know, that's all you could possibly expect. Now, the intolerance, the insulting, the aggression, the violence, the verbal violence, you have no idea where that leads. It starts just like verbal violence. It's a very short path between verbal violence and physical violence as well. This has probably been so far one of the most violent, most hostile elections in recent U.S. history. I'm not saying anything new. You guys probably know this as well. It's kind of dangerous when you go down that way. I think, though I could be wrong, our government knows our world will be changing significantly over the next 200 years, particularly climate change. As the climate warms and gets hot, food will become more expensive. Well, I actually think that food will become more expensive. So my theory is the government is in the process of removing weapons from the public. Well, that's always something that happens with, you know, governments do not like, in general, governments, especially tyrannic governments, they don't like armed populations. I don't think anyone, I mean, Donald Trump will not, and Hillary won't, even if she tries. I don't think Hillary will try that bad either. I think she has other things, you know, her best interest in mind in other regards, especially financial ones. But even if she tries, I don't think Hillary Clinton will have more success than Obama in terms of restricting gun rights. Let me try to go some of the other Libertopian, that's right, it was supposed to be Jeb, then Rubio, then last resort Cruz. Trump took their lunch money, ha ha ha. Yeah, I mean, think about this. What if Hillary wins simply because you presented Trump as an option when, I mean, it's not rocket science, guys. You have to be a little bit smart in terms of understanding some of the things. But any other candidate rather than Donald Trump, probably already would be leading by 2 or 3 points as of right now. Hillary Clinton is so bad, is such an awful candidate, that it took Donald Trump to have her on the lead. If she wins, if Hillary wins, I think it's pretty close right now. I think it's, especially with the recent email thing that surprisingly, just a week before the elections, those emails popped up, the FBI all of a sudden waking up. Anyone else other than Donald Trump would have beaten Hillary Clinton by a wide margin. Just before starting blaming people that, that are not voting and are getting other people elected because of their votes, think about the candidates that you've been presented. If you had Cruz, or if you had any other candidate other than Donald Trump, especially given some of the things, the women things regarding if you had any other candidate other than Donald Trump as a Republican candidate, he would have won already. I have very little doubt about that, because Hillary is such a, it takes a lot of dedication to put a vote for Hillary Clinton. So the only way to ensure a Hillary Clinton win was having someone like Donald Trump. And even still, it's pretty close. But just saying that, if Hillary actually wins, you will only have the Republicans to blame for it, for presenting Donald Trump. Any other guy would have gotten so much more votes already. Again, my opinion. Yours may be completely different. I just hope we can do this in a civil manner. There are two choices. Either you vote for Clinton, criminal cable back, blah, blah, blah. No, there are not two choices. There are more candidates than just two. You probably want to update on that. Because Trump isn't a Republican, he's a national. Yeah, Trump is a Republican candidate. That's pretty. There are things that are opinions. There are things. One of the interesting things in Argentina that happened was that with the Kirchner government, everything became a matter of opinion. If you, for example, if you had 50% poverty in the country, you would go like, you people destroyed our country. You just ended up with 50% poverty. And they would go like, well, that's your opinion. And no, it's not an opinion, it's an actual fact. So you have to distinguish between facts and opinions. I'm all for opinions, but I'm also for facts as well. Donald Trump is not the Republican candidate. Yes, he is. He's a nationalist populist that has taken control of the GOP. Are you looking to elect a nationalist populist? You want to look for other nationalist populists and see how that ended up. Here I have one that says, Fernando, I've been following your work for 6 years. I own both your books, and I think you've made a tremendous contribution to the PrEP movement, probably the best. Well, thanks a lot for that. I appreciate your support over the years. But you should take this video down. This is where it gets, I've been following you for 6 years. I have both of your books, but you should take this video. Why? You can just disagree with me on one thing, and it shouldn't be the freaking end of the world. Do you follow my line of thought? Is it that irrational? Is it that crazy that once I may not completely agree with what you're doing? You should take this video down. No, I'm not going to be taking it down. I really appreciate your support, and I appreciate that you've taken the time to comment and share your ideas. Maybe you should do as well. I mean, appreciate that I'm willing to do this interaction, even if we don't completely agree on all things. I think that at the end of the day, most of us are good people that want the best for everyone, but sometimes it happens that we don't think alike in at least some things. You really don't know what the situation is in the US now, and you definitely don't know anything about Trump. And there's the condescending thing that sometimes happens. I know about Trump. I mean, I don't know who wrote this. Peter Blandings, is it? Peter, I've known about Donald Trump for decades. I mean, not kidding, 2 decades at the very least. I've known about Trump when he was a millionaire. I've known about Trump when he went bankrupt. I know about Trump when he did shameful things just to make more money and start getting back on his feet. I've known about Trump for a very, very long time. Trump is not a secret little hidden weapon that someone had there in terms of politics. Trump is a guy that's been very public for many, many years. If you just kept your eyes open in the last few, I don't know how old you are, Peter. At my age, I've known about Trump for 2 decades, and I've known about many of the things that convinced me that he's an awful option as a president. All right, that doesn't make Hillary Clinton any better, but it definitely shapes my opinion that I have of him. It's not that I'm stupid or that I'm ignorant or I don't know what I'm talking about, like some of you guys seem to think. It's actually the opposite. I have a very good idea of what Trump is and what he stands for and what he's been doing his entire life. He's a 70-year-old guy that's done very shady things to become extremely wealthy, like other billionaires have done as well. At the age of 70, all of a sudden he has this devotion, the presidency should be about public service. It should be someone that is willing to make some personal sacrifice for the well-being of others. That's what a president should be. It shouldn't be someone looking to benefit himself, profit himself, make himself famous, sleep with more women because he's president. Those are not reasons to be a president. A 70-year-old guy that never had the inclination to do anything regarding politics, public service, anything at all other than thinking in himself and his own well-being, is really not the guy. And I know what some of you guys are thinking right now is that's why he's an outsider. No, he's not an outsider. He's a guy that's part of the establishment that has always been a problem in the entire planet. And I'm not saying anything that Donald Trump hasn't said himself. He said before, when asked, why did you give money to Hillary Clinton? Why did you endorse and finance Hillary Clinton? And he would say, well, that's because I gave them, and literally this is what he said, I would give them money and then I would get favors from them. So that's called corruption. I don't know where you're from, but that's being corrupt, bribing politicians so that you can benefit from that later on. So if that's what you've been doing your entire life and you're now a 70-year-old man that just doesn't know what to do with himself anymore, that doesn't make you a good candidate, doesn't make you an outsider, it makes you an insider. The difference is that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are both part of the same problem, just on the different ends of the scheme in terms of who gives money, who receives it, who works for who. So that's why we're saying that basically the same thing. These are two guys working for the well-being of a very small group of people. That's not who you want as their president. Now, the funny thing is I'm always talking about Trump here because I don't really get a lot of pro-Hillary Clinton email or comments, I guess, which makes sense. I don't think Mr. Trump is corrupt. I simply disagree with his proposed policies. Mr. Trump is corrupt because he admitted to corruption several times himself. For example, and I watched it myself, and it's very much public, it's on YouTube, he said out loud that he gave money to Hillary Clinton as well as other politicians because he would then gain favors in exchange for that. That's the kind of thing that I'm against building a wall between US and Mexico. I'd much rather have those billions go improving water infrastructure. Well, yeah, I suppose that makes more sense than building a wall. I mean, you could easily deport the idea of the wall, for example. That's another thing that's pretty ridiculous. The idea of a wall. If you actually deport every single immigrant and you make sure that you deport everyone that crosses, you wouldn't need to build a wall at all. No one would even bother coming if they know that they're going to be deported, right? That's something that I don't mean to insult the intelligence of Trump supporters because I truly believe in respecting every single person, and no matter their political views. But it's just makes no. Why are we going to be building a wall when the wall is not what's going to be keeping people out? What's going to be people out is the policies that you implement. Building a wall would be appealing to the lowest common denominator. The way in which you keep immigrants out is you simply deport every single one of them. Australia, for example. Australia has a very questionable way in which they treat illegal immigrants. They just put them in a horrible island until they, you can make the argument of their human rights. But in terms of effectiveness, that's by all means the most effective way of making sure no one wants to come to your country. Whenever you catch them, you either deport them or you put them in a hellhole until they die. No one's going to be going to your country anymore. No one's going to be crossing legally or illegally anymore if you do that sort of thing. It's much more effective. I mean, if we're talking technically about keeping people out, that's much more effective than building a hugely expensive wall. And the thing about this is not just about building it. You can build a wall and spend a few billions in it, and maybe you think that's money well spent. The thing is, the cost of maintaining that wall and securing all that, it's much more expensive and less effective than having a different policy in terms of we just deport everyone that crosses here illegally. That's our stance. That's what we're doing. You know that if you cross illegally, we're going to be deporting you, and it's going to be very rough on you. That's the kind of thing that stops illegal immigration pretty fast. A wall is like kindergarten attitude to keeping something out. Yeah, I was talking about before. Yeah, I'm going to be taking all the time, guys, because I think that if you bothered to write this, I'll just make my best to reply to as much as I can. The thing is that it's like 80 messages, so understand. Yeah, I'm going back to the one from, I think it's Peter. Man, it's a very long comment that you have. This is the one that says, Fernanda, I've been following you, work for 6 years. I own both your books. You should take this video down. I went through that already. You don't know anything about. Yeah. All you really need to know is that the mass media is 1,000% for Hillary and 1,000% against Trump. I don't think so. Again, my opinion, but if I just turn on CNN right now, which is Hillary's channel, they're just destroying Hillary with the FBI thing. If CNN, if Clinton News Network was looking to favor Clinton, they just would not mention the problem at all. That's what you do. And something very interesting is that CNN has always had Donald Trump on their headlines. Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. They knew that every time they mention him, they're advertising the guy. And they know, as well as everyone else does, that as Trump said himself, he can go into Fifth Avenue and shoot someone in the head. He will not lose any votes, because that's the kind of, the core of his support is that kind of person. He can do no wrong. So if you just want to bring down Donald Trump, you don't mention Donald Trump. That's the way in which you bring down his numbers, by not mentioning it all. Yet CNN always mentioning Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. This porn star said that Donald Trump, and it's ridiculous, because at the same time you mention a porn star talk poorly about Donald Trump, is like, well, she's a porn star. That's the immediate thing most people will think of. Her argument about being sexually harassed has really no. Those are the more subtle things that they tend to do. I think we're fucked either way, so I'm just preparing as much as possible. That's a healthy, this is from Dan Carr. I have friends and family voting for Trump as if he will fix the world. I live in a predominant Republican area. So I don't know anyone voting for Hillary. I actually don't know anyone voting for Hillary either. I mean, I don't get hate mail. I mean, I get hate stuff from Trump supporters, but I don't know. I guess that most people in the survival community are either, I think that 80% are Republican, most of which will vote anything that's Republican. Some are not really that much into it, and some will not vote, or they will grudgingly, as a first comment, they will grudgingly vote for Trump just so as to not have Hillary win. Some guys are voting third party, Gary Johnson. Some guys are indeed. Others have stated this: since the people in power are the media, I'll have done everything to undermine Trump. He must be threatening the status quo. Hillary is scary, Trump is an unknown. Yeah, okay. I mean, again, for me, Trump is not an unknown. I've known about Trump for decades as a businessman, as a, you know, as someone that had gone bankrupt. I at least remember very well one of the times in which he honestly went bankrupt pretty bad and such. Then the other times in which he used bankruptcy, you know, the classic thing, using bankruptcy so as to get rid of. I cannot, in all, I mean, I respect anyone who's voting for whoever that is. I just don't see how you cannot see that this guy is pretty shady in pretty much everything he does. Hope you feel better soon. Okay, thanks. Yeah, you noticed that as well. Tell me, how is this is from Liberty Garden. I hope you had enough patience to stick until right now. Liberty Garden, I know that you're a guy that always comments, and I really appreciate your support and your comments. And you know what? I appreciate something, Liberty Garden, is that even though you're a Trump supporter, you didn't just lash angrily at me as, you know, fuck you for not voting Trump, that sort of thing, which, you know, kind of disappoints you. Tell me, how is Trump exactly bad or just as bad as Hillary? Well, I think that he's again, just trying to keep it short, because going through everything that I see bad about Trump will be taking almost as long as going through everything bad that I see about Hillary Clinton. The thing that I see is that, in a nutshell, is this: they're both part of the same system of corruption. One is a billionaire bribing his way through life, and, you know, basically being above the law, above everything else. He's above everything that the little guy is, and he's happy in that position. I mean, Trump is happy in that position of being above. He's maybe more outspoken than many other elites in terms of his status and how he pisses over everyone that's not a billionaire. And Hillary Clinton is the kind of politician that is, you know, she's in the pocket of people like Donald Trump. So they're basically both part of the problem. The billionaire bribing and using the law as it works best for him, modifying it as it's necessary, bribing his way through everything, putting money in the pockets of people like Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump literally put thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the pocket of Hillary Clinton. How cannot you see something there that is not right? I mean, this is the guy that financed Hillary Clinton. It isn't. How much money did you give to Hillary Clinton? I suppose it has been very little over the years. I would be willing to bet that Liberty Garden, you never gave a single cent to Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump gave her at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more. Who knows? Why? Because it works in his best interest. He's not thinking about your best interest or anyone else. The only dirt on the guy is a 10-year-old conversation about wanting to shag a woman. About the women thing with Donald Trump, about grabbing them by and I mean, even his obsession with his own daughter, which is very weird, because he's always mentioning how good looking she is, how if she wasn't his own daughter, she would be, you know, chasing her, or basically being, you know, horny for his own daughter, which is extremely weird and you know, kind of sick as well. If that was the only thing, and you had lots of positive things in terms of his policy, I mean, the guy was never involved in politics at all, so, you know, you really have to guess about that. But if he had a solid political career, or somewhat solid political career, or a political career at all to begin with, Hillary Clinton has a very long, disastrous political career. That's why you cannot vote her. And Donald Trump has the shady businessman career. That's why I at least would not support him. Okay, going back for the conversation about shag a woman. everything else, including his tax returns, which we haven't seen them, pale in comparison to the lies and scandals surrounding Hillary Clinton. I don't know, regarding, I guess I see Trump a little bit worse than you do, but not because of the women comment, which I mean, as a woman, I would be offended by a guy that is, insulting of women all the time and, calling women ugly, as he was some beauty exponent of some kind. But as a woman, I would definitely not vote for the guy. As a man, I mostly dislike most of his business career and the way in which he handled himself his entire life, basically. 70-year-old billionaire that always bought his way through trouble and had his business in terms of hotels and real estate always very shady, always screwing guys over, and you could go like, yeah, well, that's business. Well, yeah, I guess it is, but is this 70-year-old billionaire all of a sudden going to be having a change of heart and stop screwing people over? I at least don't believe it. If you believe it, if you think that Donald Trump had a change of heart and all of a sudden wants to be a massive patriot of some kind, I don't see it. I respect your opinion, though. Border, language, culture, we Americans don't do globalism. It's not in our nature. You pretty much did war and invaded every country in the planet, and you're right now in the Middle East all over the place. If there's something that you do is globalism. You're involved. America is involved in pretty much every conflict ongoing right now. How is it that you're not into that? I mean, we don't do globalism. Yes, you do, man. You do globalism a great deal. In fact, one of the things that I loved about Ron Paul was he was not in favor of intervening in all sorts of conflicts that have nothing to do with America. He was, we're going to be bringing our troops home. We're not going to be messing with any other country's politics or whatever conflict that they're involved in. And you know what? Ron Paul had the most support from the troops. People in the military greatly supported Ron Paul because precisely this, because they didn't want to go fight wars that were not their own to fight. They didn't want to be involved in conflicts that were not their own. Ron Paul was could have been a great president. That's such a shame. That guy, did I agree with everything that Ron Paul had going for him and all of his political statements? Not all of them. I mean, there were things but he wasn't. And this is something that Liberty Garden sometimes, at some point, mentioned. He says, "You're always choosing between the lesser of two evils." Ron Paul was not one of the lesser evils. Ron Paul was a very good candidate. That was a guy that I supported back then. I try to do my little grain of salt of sand from here, but unfortunately, didn't go that way. Now think about that for a second. People that believed in Ron Paul but wanted to beat Obama, they voted for Mitt Romney, right? You weren't supposed to vote for Ron Paul because you were throwing away your vote, right? So you were voting for Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney lost anyway, and so did Ron Paul. Now, if you had given Ron Paul more votes, you would have made much more of a statement. You would have turned the eye towards that way of thinking, towards that way of doing politics. Even if both guys ended up losing, much more votes to Ron Paul, much more votes in that direction would have started shifting the way people think about politics. You're not always having to vote to beat the guy you don't want as a president. You have to vote who you really believe in. At least that's the way I see politics. Again, after having gone through hell and back in terms of politics with, it was 12 years of constant humiliation with the Kirchner government. It was a shame. That's the people, they say that people have the politicians they deserve. It's sad because when you have crap like that as your president, you really feel like hiding under a rock or something. It took us 12 years of crap until we learned our lesson and realized that something else had to rise from all that shit. And finally, people voted for that. In spite of not being the easiest vote, they did. And finally, a little bit of pride in my country in terms of politics It's really appreciated. Trump wasn't chosen. Your very beginning position is absurd. Hillary was bought by the establishment and so endorsed. But Trump, all business and all establishment politicians on the Republican side were openly against him. Yeah, but he's the Republican candidate nonetheless. So much for him not being the establishment. Well, yeah, this is from Liberty Guardian as well. Well, Fernando, unless Jesus himself runs for president of the U.S., we will always be voting for the lesser of two evils, since humans are wrecked by nature. So pick your poison, close your eyes, hold your breath, and swallow. Yeah, you know, I think that in this case you have those two evils. You have Trump and Hillary, the lesser of two evils. Well, sometimes you have a candidate that you don't believe is. Ron Paul was not the lesser of two evils. I think that Gary Johnson would not be the less of two evils. I think he's a step ahead of those two as a viable president. At least that's what I think. Tell me, how did Argentina get rid of Cristina? By not voting? Well, at some point, yeah, at some point she was getting such the number of blank votes, of people that were voting for none of them, made a statement. At some point, it actually did. We didn't change anything with that. I at one point I voted like a blank vote for a protest vote of none of these candidates. Just tore up a piece of paper, one of the pieces of paper, and you just put it in the envelope, and that was your vote. It was a protest vote. None of these candidates is worth my vote, but I'm still voting. I'm not staying home. I'm going there, and I'm saying none of these guys is worth my vote. It's a long process. The American thing of wanting, immediate results right now. Sometimes these things, one of the things that Mauricio Macri said, and he was right so much, you have to be willing to make a sacrifice which you may not see yourself. Are you willing to make that sacrifice? Sometimes you're going to be making a vote that you feel is being thrown away. Sometimes that little grain of sand piles up, doesn't change this election, but it changes the following one. You voted for a third-party candidate. We voted for third-party candidate time and again. We didn't get anything. After 12 years, we actually got our third-party candidate and is now president of the country and is now jailing all the sons of bitches that screwed the country back then. Are things... I'm a little bit of a pessimist. Until I see the results, I'm not going to be entirely for the guy right now, the president right now. But at least, in my opinion, it's going in the right direction. So, yeah, that's what we did. I think it was a pretty big deal. Ron Paul is a Republican. The party stonewalled him during the primary to give preference to Romney. They tried to do the same to Trump. Well, Ron Paul, yeah, I think at some point he was, but what matters is actions is what matters. At the end of the day, they went for Mitt Romney. They didn't go for Ron Paul, and that's it. That's the fact. That's what they ended up doing. Just like right now, Donald Trump is a Republican candidate. It is what it is. The point is that if you want an outsider, Trump is an outsider. I don't think he's an outsider by any means. Especially not, he may seem as an outsider in terms of politics. He's not an outsider in terms of the core problem that you have of the ruling elite destroying you and getting so much wealthier after the economic crisis, after 2008. If you look at the charts in terms of who's benefiting from the misery of others, the massive misery and the loss of quality of life, as the American middle class kept going in the same way, maybe dropping a little bit over the years, the elite, the guys really, the 100 richest guys in the country were going like this, profiting like crazy, while everyone else was getting screwed. This is getting pretty long. I'll try to wrap it out. I just won't be able to cover all of the comments, so sorry for that. Guys and gals, listen to Fairfall. Over here in Greece, we keep voting for either one. Yeah, well, Greek preparedness. Yeah, you get it. You understand what I'm talking about. You suffer it as well. These guys keep screwing you over and over, and it's just never, it's a the douchebag and crab sandwich joke of South Park. It's basically what it is. Guys, elections are pretty close. Someone's going to be winning, either Trump or Hillary Clinton. Trump actually has a good shot right now, given the FBI scandal ongoing with Hillary Clinton. If anything, I don't think much is going to be changing. I don't. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, as I could always been, but I don't think that much is going to be changing with either one of them. Guys, that's going to be all for now. As always, I hope something got through the screen here, and I'm not as stupid as some of you guys seem to think I am. It's not really that hard to see some things, and I've been involved and very much interested in American politics from a very long time. I lived in the United States. It's a country that I dearly love. I don't know if you see that or not. And I want nothing but the best for the American people. So anything that I'm saying, is always looking for the best for the United States. So yeah, that's gonna be all for now. Remember to subscribe. Take care. Have a great Halloween as of right now. We're doing the pumpkin thing and the kids dressing up and such. So we're gonna be doing trick or treat soon enough. Take care. See you on our next video.